I realize it's the last session of the day, and probably all the snacks and beer would have been perfect, but I checked it myself, and they're still on ice yet, so it's going to be a little warmer right now. Otherwise, I brought a whole case of anything myself. My name is Robbins. I'm with WS3. I'm a software development manager there. And I'd like to tell the story of essentially our mobile story. So I'll take it from start to finish. I've been with WS3 now for 8 months. And an interview in the mobile landscape, 8 months, probably feels like, I don't know, 3-4 years. I've probably gained a few gray hairs just because of this already. So in the beginning, one of the things that we had to do is like, why do you need to scale? So I started last August, and WS3 essentially had just started out doing the whole mobile landscape maybe a year and a half earlier, although it didn't even exist at that point. And so they had actually thrown out there and said, hey, we're going to dive into this and figure out what this actually looks like, and then take a step back and kind of review. So what they did is they threw out an app, got some perspective from a mobile landscape, and then figured like, all right, this actually works. We're going to take the next step. Started working through from a business platform of we're going to do monetization for other games and things like that. So they built that with the concept, and there's the one caveat, of course, with their developers, and said, hey, if we do this, you're going to let us freaking like come back and rebuild the back end, because we're going to build out an MVP product that's probably really going to suck, right? Everybody, but the caveat here was that you're going to let us come back and rebuild this. I didn't know any of this when I actually got hired. I was like, oh, really cool. Well, that sounds cool. It's like, you know, the web many years ago, so this is the hot place to jump. So I started in August, looking at it, and I'm like, wow, this is phenomenal. Little did I know, though, that we had an entire system to build out. They had something, it was working, but they're like, hey, iOS just shut down our incentivized app installs. We need to shift to Android like right now. And by the way, you need to finish building out this entire backend system for us while we're at it. I'm like, oh, great. And so I did some math as we started through. I'm like, holy crap. To build that out was going to take about 450 points. And we use Agile, so our sprint consists of 3 weeks. And with that, we actually, I did some math, and with just 6 individuals, it would have taken us about 7.5 sprints, which would have pushed us up to about roughly just finishing up in March. And I don't know if any of you have actually met some of the other co-founders and the business individuals there, but they're going to say that that's not quite acceptable. We need this now, as most of you work with business scenarios. It's not acceptable to have this out in 6 months. So I said, all right, what do we need to do to actually do this? I was like, all right, I realized Agile is a scenario where like you time box and you actually have a fixed set of resources. In this scenario, it's like we have to actually have more bodies. So this is the reason why we had to scale. We had this massive undertaking, like essentially jumping into mobile for the first time all over again. At the same time, you're keeping on a normal system at the same time. So there's lots of challenges you can imagine that we went through. So I'll just give you a snap real quick. Instead of 7.5, we got it done in 4 sprints. So by November, December timeframe, we actually met our requirements of what we were expected to do. So how do you expand a team? I was a developer before. I've never tried to expand a software team. I've never done management before. This is all brand new to me, so it's like, what do we do? So the first thing I try to do is I just hire. I'll take anything that you guys can bring in, tell HR, send me everything you got. I'm going to bring everybody in. And it's butts in the seats, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. We need coders. We need lots of coders. We just can go, 24/7. And the problem is that we, at W3I, so much of the nerdery, we have a scenario where you've got to fit the actual profile of the company. You can't just hire anybody. We're looking for that certain somebody that has that pizzazz, right? And I'm not throwing one more caveat. We're in Sartell, Minnesota. Nothing against Sartell or St. Cloud, but I'm going to tell you now, it's not San Fran. It's not like the tech hub. It's not even Minneapolis. I'm trying to recruit talent. Good luck. It's really difficult. So I sucked about as much talent as I could from every single other place out there. I was talking, I was handshaking. I mean, if I could have kissed babies, I would have done that too. But I was doing anything I could to get people in there. And luckily, we had a lot of people that said, hey, just hiring anyone is not going to cut it. And we'd already worked with a firm called MinneBar. Actually, we got a couple people here from there today. But we've actually worked with them for a long time with 2 individuals on our team. They're great individuals that can jump between one team and another, and they worked really well. So we actually said, hey, what would it take to bring over our people? He's like, well, how many do you want? I was like, well, how many can you give me? He's like, I don't know. I was like, well, give me more. I want more. And that's all I kept telling him. I was like, I probably shot more emails to him saying, you have anybody else? You have anybody else? I'll take them. And so we grabbed every single person that they could provide us, and we ramped up essentially from going from 2 up to, I don't know, probably 13 in a very short amount of time. At the same time, of course, we're looking at local talent, and we're going through that, and trying to make sure that we had the right individuals that we brought in. We hired a couple, but again, local candidates were hard to find. So with that, with expansion, as most of you are aware, comes growing pains, right? And that's your typical scenario, is that, hey, it's easy when you have 3, 4 people managing a sprint, and trying to convey to others that when you get bigger, you actually start slowing down. You bring someone on, it's like, how do you onboard somebody? How do you get someone to come in, but still get your points that you need for that sprint without slowing down the other people? And those are some of the challenges that we had. Communication. So W3I, when I started, probably had 50 people. We're up to over 100 people right now. But one of the challenges now is now you have a completely distributed, remote set of individuals. Everybody I talk to get advice from, just have them in the room. Go talk to them. Like, that's not going to freaking work. There's an 8-hour time difference between myself and our Bulgarian team. That's not going to cut it. Also from communication, it goes beyond just actually collaboration and talking. It goes to an IT infrastructure standpoint. So one day I'm calling up, like, why isn't our bridge system working anymore? Apparently we hit the max license number on our bridge system. So we're pushing the envelope just about every way we could within our organization. And so we came up really quick, like, holy crap, we've got to figure out how to scale out the IT. And of course it's, I don't know, October. So everybody's got this big CapEx type scenario you've got to go through, as you can imagine. So you've got to go through the budgeting and figure this out at the same time. And I've never seen IT move fast, for God's sakes. I wish they could, God bless them, but so far they're not. With that, on top of that is product managers. So as our team is also ramping up, they're ramping up the product management staff. So essentially we had 1 at first, now we have 3 product managers. And they're all saying, no, you need to work on our project, or you need to work on our project. So trying to get those product managers to collaborate on top of that was another pain point. Because they all wanted the resources to build out their product. Except the problem was there's one agile team. Again, I had come from a background of waterfall. Had no freaking clue about agile. Totally brand new to the entire system. So the other thing we had problems with is story management. We use version 1 software. I don't know if anyone's heard of that. There's also Trello and Jira and everything else out there. I went to a wonderful conference last fall, Agile Day. I don't know if you went to that. David Hussman, the dude, was there. Gave some great advice on Agile to me. Version 1 was actually there, and I sat down and talked to them and explained how we're using the product. And in every one of these areas, we actually had to really adjust what we're doing and actually change things. So number 1, from a communication standpoint, I realized the bridge wasn't going to work when you actually have these varying locations. So you have, did I mention one of our product managers is also in San Francisco. So now you have that 2-hour delay there too. So we've got San Fran, Sartell, New York for one of our remote individuals, Sofia, and Veliko Chernovo, but also in Bulgaria. And so you're trying to figure out how to tie those together. And what we end up doing is just saying, all right, we're going to shift to Skype. Because it has worked really well just on a one-on-one conversations with the New York individual. And so the headsets were really good. We're like, well, what would happen if we just tried Skype? So we tried it, threw it on the laptop. I mean, I tell you now, it's got probably the worst microphone I've ever seen on the IBMs. The Macs work better. So we ended up shifting over to like an HD camera, and it just worked fabulous. All of a sudden, they're like, wow, who's talking? They could actually recognize the voices and realize, they didn't even realize who it was anymore that was talking. Because we tried the Polycom, and it still was better. What we found is just using Skype with the video worked really well. And that solved kind of the communication standpoint. The onboarding scenario, luckily, we had those 2 individuals that were already there. And that really helped us with onboarding. I don't know how we'd actually have done that unless fly somebody over there or something of that sort. But we were able to use that one individual to essentially bring the team together. So we'd sprinkle 1, 2, 3 developers at a time from our onboarding standpoint to get them brought up. And from an IT standpoint, what we ended up doing is we were able to just spawn up new VMs for these developers. So that way we wouldn't have to actually worry about the physical machines. Because everybody, of course, from an IT standpoint, you're really concerned about your software licensing. And this allowed us to still maintain the software licensing across the other individuals and still be able to use the AD groups and everything else. So using VMs, Skype, really tying that together. The other aspect from a product management standpoint was I just had to say, hey, you really need to work with this, and you're going to have to start figuring this stuff out. Because when you're trying to bring on work for 13 individuals in a sprint planning session, it's a logistical nightmare. So as you can imagine, I realized this later that a great number is 4 or 5 versus 13 per team. That was something around October, November timeframe I started figuring this out, that it didn't quite work so well. Because what we're seeing is we'd spend an entire week of just planning to get one story for each person. And by the time we hit the next week, they've already burned through their points and they're ready for another story. So we're just doing sprint planning after sprint planning, which was killing us from a speed perspective. And you got everybody else saying, hey, when is this going to be finished? Like, still working on it. Give me a second. And that doesn't always work so well when you're dealing with the owners. And the story management, we actually ended up retooling how they had done version 1. I just spent a weekend saying, all right, why is this effed up? Something's not right. And what we found out is the way they configured it initially, based on teams versus projects and things like that, they misconfigured the entire thing on initial setup. So luckily, the product managers, I went to them and said, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to change it so it fits actually what we're trying to accomplish here. And luckily, they were having the same pain points. Because what was happening is the product managers were coming and saying, hey, what's happening with this story? Or actually, excuse me, what's happening with this initiative? I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm going to go spend the next 3 days talking to people, figuring it out. And I couldn't actually say, here's how many points are left on it, here's how many is done. I wasn't able to do that. But when I did, I had to burn through like half a week just figuring that out. And then when they come back to me 2 weeks from then, how's this coming along? I still couldn't answer because we weren't using epics or anything else like we should from an Agile standpoint. So by retooling our version 1, we were able to aggregate that data up. So now it's essentially product managers actually take that pain. I don't even have to deal with it anymore. I do one report at the end of our sprint, and it just aggregates all the data. I can actually understand from a number standpoint how everything lines up. I can tell them which initiatives we're still working on, how many points are left. And realistically, it's extremely simple for a small shop such as ours. I know the Nerdy has like a $1 million type backend system that can tell you probably if I had coffee or not today, but we're not quite there. We don't need that. So, as you can imagine, it's time to actually split these teams. And at the same time, we're still trying to grow. So that presents a challenge. There's a lot of people saying, hey, you should split your teams based on front end versus back end. No, you should split your teams this way. And I think that's the beauty of coming to this without ever doing management before. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to just take all your opinions and we're going to do something a little bit different here. So I actually split it up into 4 teams. And we ended up going with what kind of a model that fit the business versus taking the developer side and fitting a team to development, right? So trying to fit a team to a back-end system of code. So we take it from a different perspective and think, how do we fit a team to a business? How do we align those? Because the key thing is you need to align those product management up to those teams. So we ended up busting into 4 teams. We did one that's called New Initiatives. And all they do is work on roadmap items. And the roadmap items are just things that have come up, and they say, we're going to work on this one. This is a scenario we'd like to be. We want to do this. Coming up this next year is something we need to get into. And what I was seeing is that we really needed points to do this, but there was nobody able to rally behind that and really get into that. So we busted off an entire team focused to what I call new initiatives. We also took a team, and I said, all right, how do we scale? So initially, I'll draw some numbers. I don't know if I'm supposed to or not, but like last January 2011, there was probably $3,000 worth of monetization on the platform. So it's like, we're not too much. But how do you scale from doing 10,000 DAUs to 2 million DAUs? And how do you bring on thousands of publishers and advertisers? Because we sat right there in the middle, trying to make everybody's lives awesome and really make money for everyone. It was a win-win. But how do you actually scale everybody? How do you actually make sure that those people are happy? Because our clients are developers. And so it's great. It's like, I was a developer. I kind of know what I want. And so we actually busted out an entire team just on, I said, your vision is to create raving customers. That's all I want you to do. I don't care how you do that, but you need to figure out how to create raving customers. And so they manage that entire front end, what you're going to see from documentation up to tooling to automation and things like that. Because our system was crap, I can tell you that now. It was one of the worst systems I've ever seen. You couldn't even log in last August. It was that bad. You'd log in and it'd time out. You get a server timeout. I'm like, come on, really? So that was one of the big challenges. So we scaled that team up in December. The other team we ended up breaking off was what I call the core team. And all they do is when a new initiative comes in and it's actually built out, proven, ready, it flows over to a core team. And their team, all they focus on is essentially the back-end product, core system. They are the ones that actually fix the bugs that come in. They handle the front end because we produce an API and an SDK. So they take care of client-side development and they take care of server-side. Because typically from a client side, you're really concerned about, you're probably going to have some sort of ownership or pairing between your API and your SDKs when you build these out. So it's really important that those two had a collaboration. So that's what we fixed out. And then we had one more. We do a premium type product called Games Platform. And we just busted them out totally by themselves. They can run and just do whatever they need to do. And that's why we split those teams up. The right size, again, that agile day definitely helped. I don't know how many people I interviewed through that entire thing and came out realizing that 4 people is probably the best size I could come up with, 4 to 5, versus 13 is just way too much of a burden. And so that really solved a lot of the issues around the size, the growth, the logistics. I'd love to say that I went really good when I did this, but I didn't. I screwed up a few times. I shifted people too soon. I pulled off maybe a really smart individual that shouldn't do the entire back-end system way too early. I should have held off on a few other ones. It's great when you can look back and like, yeah. But at the time, it was build. Can I have this now? And put on more people. and it's that looking back is always so much easier compared to when you're in the moment and you're realizing, holy crap, there's so much pressure from everywhere. We're just trying to stay afloat right now is all we're trying to do last August through November. So, this will be tonight, I'm hoping, but when I say beer, lots of beer, what I'm trying to say, again, the key thing is a team. Our philosophy around staff augmentation, as Stephen can attest, is that it's a team. We don't do it on a product basis or a project basis. We don't have any product managers or anything like that over in Belico Turnovo or Sophia, or if we ever go anywhere else, we won't do this. We do staff augmentation to assist us on our team. And so what I found is that by celebrating the victories, right, because we're going 1,000,000 miles an hour, everybody does. How many different shops are just freaking going so fast that half the time you don't remember why you're building it, and you built one and it's always on to the next thing, and business wants the next thing. And you can't remember why you're doing this in the first place, and eventually your developers start getting really frustrated. So how do you get them out of that mold, and how do you re-rally the individuals around you so you can keep building? And so what we do, and this is just trying out things. And so what we end up doing is when we build out a product, we take a break and we drink. I've gotten a few invoices. They drink pretty good over there. But if we're celebrating in Sartell, they are also celebrating in Sofia and Belico Turnovo. It's a challenge. The first thing I said is, how the hell do I get beer to Sofia? I didn't even know if we were allowed to drink at Sartell. I was like, can we do this? I didn't even ask. I said, we're just going to do it. Luckily, I have a boss that's pretty forgiving. I said, we're just going to do this. So we ended up setting up a session last January. We built out massive system. We were live. Actually, the first one was in November. We had built out our Droid API. So it went live. Just nobody was actually using it until, I don't know, February, realistically. So we had like an entire freaking Droid robot cave like made. It looked like the actual robot. It stood about this tall. It was pretty freaking sweet. So we ended up celebrating there. We pumped up the tunes in our cafeteria, threw on Skype the other team from Sophia. They cracked open beer at the same time we did, and we just partied up. Just had a freaking blast. And again, what that happened, though, is that actually rallied everyone back around, why are we doing this? We did a presentation, we did our little dog and pony to show everybody what we did, and it really brought us back together. And it took me, I didn't understand the power of that at the time, to be perfectly honest. I didn't realize the impact until probably, I don't know, like a month ago, when I actually finally had time to understand and realize and reflect a little bit. But at the time, you're just going so fast. And so again, we actually took another step and said, all right, this past week, we did another celebration. And what we try to do now is what I'm doing is, when we build out a product, we do the business review for product management, sales, who else wants to go. I don't really care if they want to show up or not. It's the key people I want there are the developers. The rest of them, great, that's awesome. You can have some lunch too, but it's about the developers. And so this past week, at noon, we cracked some more beers. They did a demo of one of our new products that we just put out there, and we all made sure that we celebrated around that team. It was the new initiatives team, so I said, all right, let's have a round of applause for these guys, because they have just killed it. Awesome job. And it was amazing, because like that next week, they were pumped back up. They were going freaking miles an hour again, burning through code, they found bugs, they were just killing it all over again. And so we're getting another one here probably in another month. We're going to be doing it again. We're going to start spreading these out, so as you can imagine. But taking that, the next step is we actually did a team building event also. And if you can imagine how difficult it is, like, all right, we're going to do team building here. Let's do team building. We can do all types of stuff, right? We're physically present here. How do you do team building across the country? So it's like, all right, when you do online, well, how do you do it online? Which games do we play? Can we install this stuff on our work computers? I mean, those are all challenges that you have. It's like, all right. So we ended up doing Settlers of Catan. And the interesting part from like Sophia is they had to go out of the office because the other people were starting to get jealous.
Yeah, right.
They were getting jealous of actually W3I's team. And so I was like, that's awesome. However, once they actually hit the bar to go play, I think they did this intentionally. They killed, of course, the Wi-Fi at the place. So they're like, oh, you can't play. We're just going to have to drink. I was like, all right, that's fine. We'll reshuffle, readjust like we normally do. It was a great time. We had them up on the screen. And it was, again, it's a time for us to connect. Because when you got these many teams, you need to be able to bring them back together so they can see the faces, they can see the expressions, and you got a little bit of time. We even did mimosas one morning. I definitely will recommend, make sure you find out what they like to drink, because apparently in Sophia they do not like sparkling wine.
No. Who does?
They prefer beer, if I know. So, again, lessons learned. One of the great things about doing this presentation, it really gave me some time to take a step back and really rethink about how we're doing this. And why is there a reason that we're the only one doing this with the entire MinneBar staff? And why do people there want to come work for our team, which I think is a good thing. Again, it comes back to the collaboration challenges that we first faced. I think everybody faces that, but maybe you don't have management support to really push through that wall or that perceived boundary that you're seeing. And I think that's one of the challenges that we all face, is you're in an organization, you're like, hey, I want to do this, I'm going to go do this, and you realize, oh, we can't do it because IT says we're not allowed, there's no tracking or logging on your Skype accounts, we can't do that, you got to stick with this really crappy freaking internal chat system. And we're like, figure it out. So they actually ended up having to buy Skype accounts for all of us. So we drove change in the organization. They ended up getting a business Skype. We also shifted to using WebEx because we were using some other tool. Apparently it wasn't free once they started digging into the licensing. So we had to shift from that, and I said, all right, we need this, either figure it out or we're going to keep using this, so I'm just going to put it on my credit card and you're going to invoice it for me. So So we ended up shifting to using WebEx. So those are the two tools that we use continuously for collaboration. Is Skype and WebEx. That's it. It's pretty easy. My desk phone never gets called. I was actually talking to our CTO. I'm like, why the hell do I have a freaking phone? I was like, it's taking up space. I don't need this damn thing. Can I turn it in? Like, how much can we save if we don't have desk phones? He's like, it's really cheap. He goes, I really like it. Look, I can pick it up and down. I'm talking to him now. Like, yeah, I can walk up the stairs and say hello, and we build more collaboration this way. So it's still one of those perceived boundaries that the telephone is so much easier than actually talking to someone face to face. So these are some of the basic principles that we've been readdressing back at W3I, and it's through just doing it through an example and just doing it. Essentially, is what we're doing. The other one is from the team building, as I mentioned. It's a challenge trying to do that because it's not like you go out and do paintball. I would love to, but I haven't quite figured out how to do the virtual paintball yet. I'd love to do that too. The other thing that I realized is too many meetings, right? Every organization has meetings. I need to have a meeting because I need to talk to you. I need a meeting because we need to figure this out. What if meetings aren't the answer? So meetings do not equate collaboration. That's probably the big thing that I realized. So I've said, all right, this year, we're ditching the meetings. I didn't ditch the meetings, but essentially I'm like, we've got to cut way back on this, because what happened is that we ramped up from 6 individuals to, oh my God, the mobile team is now, but outside of ours, we're probably sitting at least 40 to 45 individuals in the mobile team itself, outside of development. Now everybody's like, oh, we need some of your time, we got to talk, we're not on the same page. And what I told them is like, well, you need to come talk to me. You need to catch up, because it must be your problem. So I take the aspect that you need to talk to me. Instead of me sending you a report every week, come talk to me. And then we actually shut down, from the meeting standpoint, I actually shifted them to 15 minutes. And I empowered our team leads to say, if you receive a meeting from me or anybody else at mobile that doesn't have an agenda, just refuse to go. Don't even do it. And I realize there's a lot of head shaking and like, really? That it works, actually. You just say, if you don't have an agenda and it's over 15 minutes, you better have a damn good reason why we're doing this. Because you better not be freaking slowing down my team. They're going way too freaking fast. And there's no way I'm having them slow down for a meeting that you don't even know what you want to talk about. You want to go in there and talk about soccer with your kids. That's great. Do it after work. I don't have time for that. I know that's trying to be impersonal, because I'm very personal. You can ask my coworkers. I love to talk. We have a lot of stuff we're trying to get done, and mobile moves too fast for me to sit there and discuss my kids and me clipping lawn and everything else. So we actually shifted it down to 15-minute meetings with an agenda, and then I encourage everybody that if you've got something, a one-line email, then you need to stand up and go talk to it. Because typically what's going to happen is you're going to talk about that, and they're like, hey, by the way, did you think about this? And that builds that collaboration so you can actually move a lot faster. So it's those small things, kind of taking a step back and realizing that meetings don't mean collaboration. It's that personal interface. Otherwise, jump on Skype, time it for 5 minutes, and at 5 minutes, you're like, hey, it's 5 minutes. It's great talking to you. I'm going to go. I don't want to waste your time. And so that's what we've implemented. It's still working through. Again, it's a work in progress, and it works. So this is the one slide that I was really trying to tie it together. I was like, all right, power distance. I was talking to Steven and the individual in charge of operation, and like, yeah, power distance, that's what it is. That's why it's working so good for you. So I went out and I did some research, and it's not power distance. As you can see, they're way the hell off between the U.S. They actually fit very close to India from power distance, and the individuality is even worse in Bulgaria. So it's something else is what it made me realize. It's not power distance. Again, this is where we rethought. Since we didn't rethink outsourcing, I didn't know anything about outsourcing in the first place. So there was no preconceived notions of how we should do this. I just know that the project we did last fall with an outside firm, I won't name names, was horrible. And it was the project basis. And so what we ended up doing is we worked with this company before. They produced a couple products for us. This time we were building out our Android SDK, and we've learned that we needed to have better meetings, improve collaboration, blah, 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 blah. And so we ended up talking through it, and we met every morning with the Scrum meetings, and we reviewed their code. We actually had a source that was actually available, so we could actually look at it, all of us. And so we could actually see what was going on. And the problem was, they were still churning out the code, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse. They would fix one bug, introduce two more. Fix those two, introduce the same bugs they had broken the week previous. And it got to the point in November that I was like, there's no way we're going to meet any time frames. We actually took the product in a non-working state. Like, shut it down. We'll take the product now, and we're just going to have to deal with it. We'll take our one Droid developer we have. Like, you're going to have to rewrite the entire freaking thing because it's crap. And so he went and just started rewriting it. I think what really chapped my ass in this whole thing was they got paid the full amount, and I think they even got the bonus for meeting it like ahead of schedule. And it didn't freaking work. And I can't say that doing it in the stance that we do now would have made it better, but what I can say is that when we took it over and we brought on a Droid developer from that team and actually built the entire thing in-house doing it that way, where the staff augmentation is actually part of our team, it worked. And I tell you, he has, the one Droid developer we have, we got two right now, he introduces some of the best ideas that you can ever imagine. Absolute fabulous. You guys trying to figure out who that is?
Yeah.
And so he came out of college, physics major, really shaky about drawing. We're like, we'll take him because I need anybody I can get against, right? That's what I need. I just need people. But when you empower the individual and say you can make the decisions that you need, and instead of holding them back, just say, go, you tell us what you need. He just needed a little bit more reassurance, just as like anybody coming out of college. People will probably dealt with that. Just a little bit of reassurance and guidance, and he is phenomenal. Amazing. He's done some amazing things to our Droid SDK. Just things we wouldn't even thought of before. Some really cool stuff. I can't wait till next month when we get to show it off to the rest of the company, but they just churned through so much. It's just amazing. So, what I'm trying to say, though, is that just because this is the way we do it doesn't mean it's going to fit anywhere else. I'm naive. I realize that. We are the only one that works with them that does it this way. Everybody else does it in the project standpoint. So I can't say this is going to fit totally for what you might have, but I can tell you that it's worked extremely well. And it comes down to empowerment and accountability is what I think. And that's like treating them as a team. I don't call him Mintermate. I call him Sophia. I call him Veliko Turnovu. I call Steven Mintermate. Because they're essentially the suits behind it. You know, he's not even actually wearing a suit today, so I'm a little surprised. But they're the corporate, and they are Sophia. They're part of our team. And they really feel like they are part of us. They feel like they work with W3I. And they're a great group to be with. So actually, I had to throw this in. I asked Steven to give me a slide. So Mintermate, this is the company we work with. This is some of the stuff they work through. I'm not going to talk to it. I'll just let it up here for a little bit. But they've been really great as far as working with them, collaboration. My understanding is they'll work with you on just about anything. So I thought I'd throw them a bone here. No, they're fabulous individuals to work with. I meet with them quite often just to talk through challenges that we have. And there's so many other things that we do with them. They've been very responsive. Like I said, all right, we need headsets. The phones aren't working, so they blew out new headsets to them. And they've just been very responsive to everything that we've needed as we're going through this. I don't think we could have done this without having collaboration along with them. So kudos to them and figuring out how to get beer and invoice and everything else. And even from that team perspective, they have a great assistant over there because one of our individuals with Sophia, she's sick. And so we're like, all right, what can we send her? Some chocolates, and they send her some whiskey chocolates and some flowers in a card or something like that. But being able to have that personal relationship with those individuals only helped, and she was just so happy. And this is like the second or third time we've done this for those individuals. So competition. So this is another company. This is actually, I spoke with them out at an Apple conference. I was at the 360 IDEA. Another great firm. They're actually in the Eastern European area. So this is another one that actually Coca-Cola works with, and they have a great team that actually works with them on this one. So I wanted to give you a perspective. So you're just going to have to deal with it. And I just want to wrap up here. So, again, like I said, this isn't the only model for success. There's a lot of other things out there. I mean, there's so many different management styles that you're going to try, have at it. What I'm saying is just listen to them. It's about empathy, it's about listening, it's about understanding, it's about empowerment. And I think you're going to get a lot more from your individuals from a staff augmentation standpoint if you actually do that. So that way you can actually, they can present ideas to you. And I think that's one of the areas when I was thinking through. I'd love to say that last fall when we were working with that company, it was all our fault. It was all their fault, I'm sorry. But actually thinking through it, I did some a retrospective here recently, and it wasn't. We played into it too. They said, you know what, you probably don't want to do it this way. We said, no, look at requirement 6.1. It says you have to do this. Now do it. And they said, okay. But they didn't push back. We didn't listen. And we failed just as much as they did.
Oh, you still need.
Well, you're a salesperson, right? You have to drink some more. Get me drinking, and then I'll tell you the truth. So, I mean, I just want to reiterate, even with that working on a project scenario, you've got to really listen to them because there's probably a reason why they're saying that it's not going to work so well. So here's us in August of 2011, and actually I missed this one here. Actually didn't shift over until September because we pulled them from other teams because we needed people. So I started pretty much rating every single internal team we had, and I said, give me every one of your superstars. I need them. It's actually come back and apologize because they pulled a few people back. And so here's actually us now. These are names. It's actually MM means instrument. And what I've done is actually, based on skill set, we've aligned our individuals and really try to pair people up. And so there's a lot of other small things that I haven't even had time to touch on that are fundamental in what we've done. Just from learning how to pair individuals properly on their side versus our side, I found that usually having 2 people over there and 2 people here works out really well. So that way they have collaboration on their side versus ours. And also being able to have that clients, and again, some of our client developers actually float. I just have them float all the time. So they have to spend on one team, have to spend on the other. And I'm always readjusting and doing experimentation essentially on this. So I take Eric Reed's concept of experimentation and I apply it to our development teams. And it works out really well. So, of course, I had to throw this in here. We're hiring all types of people, except we only want the really good rock star people. So if you're not a rock star, I'm sorry, you're not going to work out so well. Is there any questions? I'd love to field any or hear experiences from other people around this. Or is anybody going through this now?
Yeah, I had more questions in terms of the bureaucracy of hiring people in national. I don't know. You're responsible for the development team, so how does that get?
So,
Would that be you?
No, it's really good, actually, yes, because bureaucracy, I didn't have a choice. I came in August, and they're like, hey, they already did the contracting for this other firm, and they said, we're going to use this firm for Android. And at the end of it, I sat down with one of the co-founders, and like, we won't use them ever again. Never. Otherwise, you can fire me now. I'm done. I won't freaking use them. They're crap. So, I mean, it's a lot of putting your neck out there, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
Is what I ended up having to do to push a little bit and prove out that this worked. They were extremely skeptical at first, I'm not going to lie to you. Extremely skeptical. And we had to prove ourselves to show them that this works. And right now they're rallying behind it. Like, our CEO, Andy, is like, yeah, great job, it's coming together. It's burning. I can't believe how many points we burned through. We churned through about 168 to 186 points in a sprint between our 4 teams. So bureaucracy is there. It's just, you're going to face it head on. I didn't let it stop me, I can say that. Showing the numbers, you're like, all right, it's going to take 450 points to do this. We've only got this much bandwidth. If you want it done here versus here, you're going to have to let me hire people. Yeah?
I got a question. I know you've been doing this for about 6 months. So how long can you do this with all this remote team? Can you sustain this?
So that's a valid scenario that I'm working through right now because we set at about a 40-60% with regard 60 being actual staff versus 40% internal. So of course you're gonna your knowledge base is essentially offshore, So what happens if they go away? How do you work through that? And I've actually argued with our CTO. It's like, no, we got to turn around. We got to change that numbers. And I would argue that, is there any real difference between the churn rate right now in a mobile standpoint of 18 months to 2.5 years compared to a churn rate inside of just your typical contracting firm? And so I think you have to think about it from even that perspective, that whether we like it or not, we're in a freaking bubble here around mobile and everything else, and that the talent pool is just getting sucked up so fast that it's extremely difficult. So what we're doing is building out systems. So it's more about the automated testing, the functional testing, pushing out one item at a time, building the build system so it just flows through, goes right through our Jenkins, hits our test flight, and we don't even touch it. So it's more about trying to capture the knowledge and actually put it into our testing framework so we don't have to worry about actually from a documentation standpoint.
I probably agree with you that it's just hard to retain talent internally. That's the biggest struggle of our organization is we work for our customers. They try to see our guys, and we make them brighter than they were when they came in, the brilliant people they were when they came in the door, and they get brighter by the peers around them, and they become more valuable. But it's a huge focus from our company. That is. I think we do a really good job of it. It's not just,
we lost someone this Friday. No one else even knows this yet, so we'll find out next week. One of our developers are leaving just because he's like, yeah, it's like a university. I'm like, oh, no. So we have the same problem.
But this is probably a place to start with too. Do you guys ever see this because of the churn rate that you have? Because you're learning people more?
yeah, sometimes, especially with the older developers, like one of my best friends was from work with an iOS developer there last year that left us, and he just said to me, what's up, Tim? And he's like, he learned iOS after actually as a front-end developer, and he became really good iOS guy. And he's like, man, it's a young man's game. He's like 45 years old. I just can't keep up with you guys at this doing this on my own. So, because it's like you said, but we have a weekly decompression thing too. You learned some tricks from.
I might have learned a few things from you.
And
yeah, I got the dog policy yet. We're still fighting that one.
Oh, yeah.
Seems they could attest.
Like a whiteboard paint.
You also get the,
We had an entire wall of whiteboard.
as the organization structure changes too, we're going to see people that have come on to the organization for different reasons, leaving for those same reasons. I mean, when we were a 30-person shop, people are coming on to have that bootstrap, code all night, that mentality would be something that's a part of something like brand new and just getting started. And then, where we're at the size we are now, the individual, we're no longer providing that level of bootstrap enterprise startup. Right. So now the people that came on board with us early to join us as startups are now leaving to go do other startup things. It's something you're going to have to recognize in your talent pool, that's going to drive the people, and it's great that it's going to drive in the door. But if they don't get they don't have the feeling of what they came there for, they're going to go find it somewhere else, and we're losing a lot of our top talent to go be VPs of other organizations. That's of small organizations. So we're losing some of our top guys to go become top guys at a small organization.
I think it's like you said, it's not a lot. I wouldn't say a lot yet. We're losing a lot, but we lose some. But it's making the developer first feel gratification for the work that they did after they get through their sprints, and that's the one thing I think that we really always excelled at is we're 100% developer first organization. It is not cool to be a business development account manager guy at my work. It's just it's nerds first for sure.
Although you wouldn't know that to talk to you guys.
So the point you're making as far as why project-based working didn't work for you as well as bringing these people on sort of over the course of multiple projects was mostly the feedback loop?
Well, I think it's the feedback loop that we really failed on, is just listening in general. and not providing them the capability to essentially push back. And that was the one thing, we're going to
Like building stupid things.
Exactly.
Because they're not part of the team. You know, they're going off and building things on their own.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Because you're not viewing them as part of the team. They're sort of tasked with, you know, things that aren't.
Sure. I think there's a couple different ways, because one of the things we're actually going to work with the Nerdy on one of our projects. But the key is I was going to find individuals that are similar to our values with regards to how we work, and actually make sure we actually do it in a scenario that they and I understand feedback, we actually listen to them. And I think we haven't done one yet, it still works, but it's a scenario where that's a small snippet of what we could possibly do, but realistically, if it's a long gauge project, we're going to bring it in-house and use these individuals, because we're looking for a long-term relationship with these individuals versus a 3-month stint to just, hey, this is something I could burn off real quick. There's very little impact of possibly failing. They've got the expertise, we don't. So it's a different way of, probably around the staff augmentation is my point, is you don't have to think of them as us versus them mentality, and think of them as more of us. There's no us them, it's always Sophia, Sartell, New York. So it's rethinking how we do our augmentation, because we can't find the talent that we need in the area. It's just way too many, we need the points and we can't find them. And we're very specific about what we're looking for too. So that's the hard part, is just how do you balance the staff augmentation and how do you do it right? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I mean, it is becoming increasingly difficult every day to find the right talent here. And I think it's probably the right approach to have a good mix of some people over here, some people over there. Maybe the time difference, there is a lot of challenges, I'm sure.
We got lucky because they actually work a split shift. So we actually, I said it's an 8-hour time difference, but what they do is they work 4 hours, so they come in at noon. And what's phenomenal is we started our own mobile on-call this year. We had teammates over there volunteer on their own to do it. They don't get paid anything extra, they get no extra bonuses, they just volunteer because they want to be part of the team. So I mean, that explains some of the dedication that they have to us, and us to them at the same time. You're probably not going to find that in most scenarios.
And is that engagement that you have with your team over, do you think that gets past among the people offshore?
Yes.
How do you engage, you know, in the same level somewhat? How do you get people engaged and motivated and?
It's hard to do that, I'm not going to lie.
Because I imagine, you know, not to have the human contact is kind of, let's do this, but,
I always call it implicit trust. It's easy to have someone right next to you that I know is doing something versus having that trust of having them across the world and understanding that they're also working just as hard as you. And building up that through, it's been an ongoing process of the team building events, of the drinking, the beer, and just listening. I mean, Stephen can probably attest that there's been times where I've gotten upset because it wasn't working. There's stuff like, you've got to fix this. This isn't acceptable. And so I advocated for them, and I think that really helped build the trust.
Yeah, I imagine it's kind of hard to you know, make the other person on the other end feel important about your team and your project, and must be overwhelmingly challenged.
And that's where I got to say kudos to my team leads, but I think coming back around, like John said, come back around and you can celebrate the successes of what they've done, because then you're applauding the team. And you're actually celebrating the team's accomplishments versus, I did great. Hey, thanks, I did it. And then instead of the CEO saying, hey, Cliff, great job, I'm like, no, that wasn't me. You need to go talk to these guys who are here. And you've got to be humble enough to be able to deflect that and to provide them that this is the one that did it. They're the rock stars, not me. I didn't touch a freaking line of code since I've been there.
I think adding transparency and also with the roadmap, like in our company right now we work with Nerdy, we work with a couple of other firms. So we deliberately said this is what we are going to do next month, next year. This is our roadmap. So that developer actually, they feel that they're part of the team actually if you include them in all the discussions.
Yeah, I think your critique of yourself with whoever your vendor was last fall, I honestly don't know. And you did drag it through the mud a little bit in a meeting with me one time, but you didn't. But like, you owning up to the fact that you were not listening to them, pushing back to you, I think was really advantageous for your relationship with these guys now at MentorMate, because that's the projects that fail at Nerdery, are when I'm working with these marketing ladies to build them some tool, and my UX guys are like, no, you don't know what you want. I know you have this huge functional requirement list, this beautiful PowerPoint that you think is wireframes, but, and then I showed them through the evolution of projects, like, you came to me with this, but as we got through the project, this is completely different, and it's what's gonna meet your business goals and your users' needs. And I've had it fail where they're like, no, like you said yourself, you were mean to them, and you put your contractor in between a rock and a hard place. I can't facilitate you if you came to me to help you and you're not letting me help you.
Exactly.
And I think that's like all the projects I noticed that fail. That's the problem. So it's cool that you owned up to that you were part of the failure.
It comes back to accountability, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we can't be accountable for ourselves, then what the hell are we doing here?